I'm sure by now pretty much everybody's heard of the Godzilla and DC debate where Godzilla killed Superman with a single atomic breath. Well, I do not agree that the Godzilla in this crossover would be able to do this to mainline Superman. People have seemed to just get so mad over this that they've been screaming stupid shit at each other. This goes for Godzilla fans and Superman fans. For Godzilla fans, I've seen people literally argue that Monster vs. Godzilla can beat the comic version of Superman. As for Superman fans, I've heard them be arrogant pricks and claim that no Godzilla can even touch Superman, which might be the biggest horseshit I've seen in my entire life, and is pretty much akin to how Goku fans were acting when they had Superman vs. Goku in a death battle. I'm talking the older death battle, not the newer one, when it went real fucking crazy. So between Godzilla fans that don't know what the hell they're talking about and Superman fans that are just being hypocritical assholes, I figured I'd go ahead and try to put an end to this little debate once and for all by having a stronger version of Godzilla than Legendary take on the comic Superman. So for this, I'm going to have Heisei Godzilla vs. Superman. I'm going to try to be as non-biased as possible, meaning I might actually downgrade Heisei's scaling for this. Although, as Superman scales pretty high, I might have to use his higher ends. That said, let's get into this debate. First off, with Superman. Superman is a character that's both easy and extremely hard to scale because his power can differentiate massively depending on how you scale him. Now, obviously, he should upscale his own universe's cosmology, as he can easily destroy it, and is pretty much hinted at it being well beyond multiversal in his own series. You also scale him directly to characters like Zatanna, who are basically omniversal according to some scales, and he should even upscale characters like her. With Sundip, he can get as powerful as the World Forger, who is just unbelievably powerful. But the problem with Superman's scaling is that, unlike the Godzilla scaling, the DC universes are not infinite in size. Well, they have an infinite void, but they're not actually legitimately infinite in size. Now, Godzilla universes are weird because they are confirmed infinite and four-dimensional. That said, we don't know if the universe itself has mass everywhere, or if it's just an expanding universe in an infinite void like a normal universe should be. But either way, the scaling on that can really either give Godzilla a win or give Superman a win, depending on how you look at it. Ultimately, Superman is pretty easily outerversal. On top of this, if you're using mainline exclusively, he has feats that put him at just some insane omniversal plus feats. Some people like to say he's boundless or has no limit. He has a limit. Now, with sun dips and just absorbing absurd amounts of energy through stars, he can basically bypass his own limits. But that's not something he's just going to be able to randomly do mid-fight if he's getting annihilated heavily by an opponent that's growing stronger even quicker. But regardless of that, Superman is easily towards the top of the DC verse. So low ends, outerversal, high ends, high omniversal. And with Sun Dip, he can grow even stronger. As for abilities, Superman is definitely not lacking. He can do everything from travel through time to freeze you with his breath, to shouting people away, to shooting lasers from his eyes that are powerful enough to literally remake a universe, according to some calcs. He has unbelievable strength. He's so fast he can bypass infinite speed. In short, he just has just about any power you can think of, because now that the old comics are canon, all the powers he just seemingly weakly made up are canon to him now. Like, making himself look like a different person by moving his muscles weirdly. I'm not joking, that's something he could literally do. Anyways, when we look at what Superman could do, he's kind of a decent balance between a heavy hitter and a hacksmonger. However, he tends to hide his more hacksy abilities with his more powerful ones. When we look at durability, Superman's a little weird because he can go from taking damage from a nuclear bomb to being able to take hits as powerful as the ones he dishes out, or even more powerful than his most powerful attacks. So for this, I'm going to be fair and go with the fact that he can survive more powerful hits than what he himself can use. That said, I'm going to have to be fair with Godzilla too, so I don't want to hear anybody going Godzilla was hurt by a plant. If we look at weaknesses, there's some pretty obvious ones like kryptonite. I don't think Godzilla is magically going to have kryptonite on him, nor would he know that it's Superman's weakness, nor were they fighting in a place with kryptonite, because that'd just be bullshit. So no kryptonite, no gold kryptonite, no weird kryptonite variants, definitely no pink kryptonite, none of that. No weird Kryptonian rocks. His other weaknesses include red sunlight, well, yes, Godzilla could probably produce a light similar to red sunlight. I don't think he'd know to do that, and his normal atomic breath would be more akin to blue sunlight, which would actually amp Superman, but since it's radiation and not actual sun plasma, it's probably not. Could argue the red spiral ray and infinite heat ray would have red sunlight like radiation in it, but if the infinite heat ray had that, then it's going to be a one-shot, and I don't want to make this fight boring and just say Godzilla one-shot Superman because he has a already stupidly OP attack that magically has Superman's weakness, despite there being no evidence to actually back this up other than it being reddish in color. So no, I'm not going to have this one-shotting Superman. That'd be akin to saying Superman's own eye lasers weaken him. Another thing I think people seem to forget about Superman is he usually doesn't go in for the kill instantly. In fact, I don't think he ever has in the main line. He might have if I've forgotten about an instance, but normally, even if it's a kaiju the size of Godzilla committing mass fucking essentially murder on an entire city, I don't think he's going in for a kill right off the bat. He'd probably try to at least subdue the creature without killing it first. Or at the very least, he's not going to go in full power right off the bat because that would risk destroying the planet he's on. And that's probably going to be Earth since they're both from Earth. So no, I don't see Superman flying in at full power and one-shotting Godzilla. Now, how does Superman's opponent scale to him? Well, Heisei Godzilla is an incredibly hard character to scale, but I think I've got most of it down by now. There are a couple things where you can either highball or lowball him tremendously. First, starting off with Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla, which is when you really get to the crazy scaling. As Space Godzilla is a thing called supergravity, and you could either scale this to 4D like I do, or you scale this to 11D like other people seem to be doing that I didn't realize they were doing until recently. I scale this to 4D because scaling it to 11D is a little fucking crazy in my opinion, but hey, you could scale him to 12D before he even gets to burning form, I guess. I'm not doing that, but okay. So Godzilla by the end of Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla is able to basically nullify the supergravity just by being more powerful. That should put him at 5D. And as he's already stronger than Space Godzilla, who they said could destroy the entire Godzilla 4D multiverse, well, not multiverse, universe, just by having infinite energy, and I guess Godzilla's already a 4D universe buster. This gets even crazier because his son Godzilla Jr. in Godzilla vs. Destoroyah is confirmed to be as powerful as he was by the end of the last movie. He then fights a character called Destoroyah before Destoroyah enters perfect form. They seem relatively evenly matched. Destoroyah then gets a 500 times boost into his perfect form, where he's able to fight Burning Godzilla. This essentially means that Burning Godzilla is around the same level as Destoroyah at the beginning of the fight, albeit maybe a little bit weaker. So he's comparable to a guy who's already 500 times stronger than he was in the previous movie by the end. And where scaling gets all the way to the full insanity of the Heisei Godzilla era is when they added an attack called the Infinite Heat Ray, when he could fire multiple times. Now, if you don't know what the Infinite Heat Ray is and you're a Dragon Ball fan, think if Goku yelled Infinite Kaioken and then he could stack it repeatedly. But instead of using Kaioken like a transformation or technique, it would be activated upon every time he uses a Kamehameha. That's essentially what Godzilla's doing. If you're not a Dragon Ball fan, just think he shoots a beam that makes him infinitely stronger, and he could shoot it repeatedly, and every time those multipliers stack on each other. He can spam this, and depending on how you interpret the attack, this can make him upscale Superman, or at the very least be on a relatively similar playing field, possibly a higher playing field, depending on how you're looking at it. That said, these attacks do take somewhat of a bit of time to use, as Superman will already be at full strength. Godzilla would have to fire multiple to get on his level. But then again, these attacks are themselves being amped by it as they're being fired. So that's an issue. When it comes to speed, I feel like a lot of people like to downplay Godzilla because he seems to just lumber around cities in his movies. In reality, although his travel speed is incredibly pathetic in comparison to Superman's, he is fast when it comes to dodging and actually fighting. In Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla, he was dodging crystals that can move at infinite speed, as they can travel from the end of an infinite-sized universe to what is around the center of it. That is infinite distance. I don't care how you slice it. It's an infinite distance. And Godzilla gets much faster as his amps to his atomic power and his physical strength also translate to speed, kind of like how power levels work in Dragon Ball, except on a much bigger scale. So Godzilla, like Superman, should have beyond infinite speed. While he doesn't have characters like the Flash and crazy feats like that to scale to, it's not insane to think he can at least react and fight on a similar level to characters like that. While he can't be running through time like Superman, he can definitely punch Superman in the face with a similar force to what Superman could dish out. As for durability, unlike Superman, we pretty much have a pretty clear idea of where Godzilla's durability should cap out. As Godzilla can survive attacks that are 10,000 times what he can dish out, and although they hurt him, they don't kill him, or even leave permanent scars. Well, that might sound completely insane. That basically means Godzilla's maximum durability is just way beyond anything that Superman's ever shown, and I'm including things like the World Forger feat here. While you might be a bit skeptical to think of that, just a reminder, Godzilla is several infinities above a guy that can one-shot a universe. That is well beyond complex multiversal, and then he can add infinite amps, which puts him above omniversal relatively quickly, and he can survive 10,000 times that. And this was scaled to the atomic breath. You can make an argument that it means he can survive 10,000 times the infinite amps. I'm not going to go that insane with it, but that is an argument some people use, and they're not entirely wrong. It's just, I don't like thinking Godzilla's that grossly overpowered. When it comes to a fight between these two, there's really only one way it'd ever go down. It's assuming Godzilla just straight up attacks Metropolis or some city within the DC universe. The way I see it going down is Superman flies down, obviously a little pissed. Godzilla's blowing up literally millions of people pretty casually. Superman tries to fight Godzilla while trying to save civilians at the same time. Godzilla doesn't take too kindly to this. However, since he's going to start out in base burning, he has to be in burning for this fight to work. If you use him in base, Superman is more likely than not going to be able to just relatively easily one-shot him. And by one-shot, I mean knock him unconscious. I don't think Superman's going to kill him unless he actually needs to. Godzilla in burning will probably fire off a couple infinite heat rays. While these will definitely hurt Superman if they hit him, it's possible they miss. Now, they can miss and not blow up the Earth because Godzilla seems to just have the ability to control his energy, kind of like how Dragon Ball characters can punch each other on Earth and the whole planet doesn't explode, or how Superman could fire his own lasers, which are literally universe-busting. They could hit Earth and they just burn a couple rocks or something. At this point, Superman's going to be in massive trouble as Godzilla's already boosted his power beyond Superman's. Superman will need to require sun dips in order to amp his power to Godzilla's level. While Superman's doing this, Godzilla has a lot of time to just spam infinite heat rays until he's pretty much closed the gap once again. At this point, Godzilla's going to be going stronger a lot faster than Superman is, but at the same time, Superman's going to be traveling so fast Godzilla cannot land a clear shot on him, assuming that we're considering that Godzilla's reaction speed is a little below Superman's and we're ignoring the infinite amps to his own speed. This leads one option for Superman. He can either use bullshit abilities to go back in time and try to kill Godzilla earlier than when the fight started. Assuming he tries this, this might not work as both of them are basically higher dimensional and time doesn't really work on higher dimensional beings, but ignoring that, if he succeeds in this and let's say flies straight through Godzilla in an attempt to kill him, Godzilla is going to regenerate very quickly and now he's going to have a bloodlust to kill Superman. Superman now would already be extremely amped, and I see this fight going on with Superman repeatedly flying away to gain more power while also using time manipulation through flying, through time essentially, in order to get as much power as he possibly can to try to fight Godzilla. Meanwhile, Godzilla is pretty comfortably getting much more powerful than Superman. This ends in one of two ways. Either Godzilla ends up having the meltdown and nobody's there to freeze him and prevent it from just straight up annihilating the entire DC and Godzilla omniverse, or Superman tries to fight Godzilla head on after Godzilla's already had enough time to literally boost his power beyond anything in DC or Godzilla that we've ever seen so far, and Superman gets obliterated instantly. Now, for all the Superman fans that are trying to debunk my scaling, just a reminder, I did not nerf Superman at all here. I gave him the insane scaling, the scaling where he'd one-shot Goku. I gave Godzilla his own fair scaling in comparison to this. If I would have lowballed Godzilla, well, I may have made a lot of DC fans real happy, thinking their favorite superhero one-shot a giant nuclear lizard. I'm not going to be unfair to Godzilla. Both these characters were made to be nearly unbeatable in their own verse. Both these characters have had a very long legacy. And both of them are great characters that should never be hated on for one beating another in a garbage crossover that nobody really gave a shit about. But when I see the internet tearing itself apart without thinking first, it's just annoying. Heisei Godzilla can beat Superman. Most other Godzillas would get annihilated by Superman. Godzilla's like the one within that own crossover would get annihilated by Superman. Godzilla's like Final Wars likely could not take on Superman. Even Godzilla's as powerful as Showa Godzilla would not be able to do much against Superman in an actual 1v1 fight. Other Godzillas like Godzilla and Hell and Marvel's Godzilla could potentially stand a chance against Superman, although I don't think they would do as well as a Godzilla who can literally add essentially an infinite Kaioken to himself. And yes, Superman could beat Heisei Godzilla pre-burning. He could also beat Heisei Godzilla if Heisei Godzilla doesn't have enough time to fire the infinite heat ray off. That said, I do not think Superman would ever be in a situation where it's just him and Godzilla fighting 1v1 for no reason. Only reason Superman would really lose here is A, Godzilla and him have pretty similar speeds and at least reaction times. And Superman will be more focused on saving people near him than actually fighting the giant radioactive monster that's blowing everything up, as Godzilla will be targeting humans, more likely than not, and Superman will try to save them. If they fought in an open plane, and you gave Superman an advantage on speed right off the bat, Superman has a chance to beat him relatively easily. However, that's assuming he goes in for a kill and not a knockout right off the bat, which is very, very out of character for Superman. Superman loses because he isn't going to just fly through Godzilla's skull, then blast him with the full power of a multiverse in order to erase him from existence. That's not a Superman thing to do, nor a thing he'd try on Earth. And saying that also brings up the question, what if Godzilla just shot an infinite heat ray right at Superman as soon as the fight started? In which case, you could argue Godzilla would one-shot Superman. So, for all the people who think Superman could just fly through Godzilla, throw him into space, or just laser him to nothing, those would not work here. It's a fight that would literally shake fiction. These characters have scaling that is beyond what most verses would even consider possible. And having them fight each other is more likely not going to lead to serious damage to their own multiverse. Ultimately, these characters, you could scale them however you want, and either one could win against the other. However, in my personal opinion, when they're both fairly scaled, Godzilla has an advantage over Superman here. You could disagree with me, and there's no issue with that, but so long as you're not going crazy and saying Superman would one-shot Godzilla or Godzilla would one-shot Superman, then your opinion's okay. But when there's people going insane, throwing fits over two characters fighting each other, arguments make about as much sense as a children's cartoon, and then that's when it becomes an issue. This is a fight between fictional characters. People can have different opinions on it, and it's okay to respect those. Anyway, that's my thoughts on this. If you liked the video, well, please like the video. Anyways, see you guys in the next one, and bye.